What would it be like to have a life of adventures in the real estate and note business? Stay tuned. Well, welcome everyone. It is 11:05 and we are glad that you are here. Note School TV. I'm covering for Joe the intro today. Joe has a brand new grandbaby girl, and we are so glad for he and his family. And so Joe is with them, and they got the old man here covering, and I'm glad to be here. So remember how it works, right? Note School TV has created a real loyal database of people that watch us and enjoy our episodes and the information that we provide. So remember to hit the bell and get that bell notification so that you'll do that. Like our episodes and share it with people. If we've said something that means something to you and you think others would enjoy it, then be sure and share it with them. So we're going to skip the news today because our special guest is going to be somebody that you are really, really going to enjoy. He will be a newsworthy individual and someone that you absolutely are going to enjoy. So stay tuned. We'll be ready. We'll introduce him. Well, our guest today is one of my life's closest friends. He has been involved in Note School for a long time, literally almost 20 years. And he and I's endeavors together and our businesses together and our fun together and really just becoming a part of each other's family are something that I could not tell you how important it is in my life and what this man has meant to me. You're going to enjoy him. He is a fun guy. And I want to tell you this. This is the most benevolent person I've ever known. So let's listen to some wisdom and some insights as to what that means and how he's applied that in their life, because that's something we all can learn from. I want you guys to welcome my friend, Mr. David Fenoglio.
Good morning, Eddie. How are you?
I'm good, pal. How you doing?
All good. All good so far.
David, you've had me introduce you this way before in live audiences, and I've done that for a reason. I know you're very modest and you don't want me to say that you're benevolent, but you are.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that.
Because, David, I believe that a lot of benevolence is taught. You believe that?
That's 100%. Yes.
So you've taught me benevolence. We have been deeply involved in charities and various fundraising things. You have a deep heart for people in need, and you have a very deep heart for kids in need, and you've done a lot for that. I want to talk about that.
Okay. I got involved with the Montague County Child Welfare Board several years ago, probably 12, 14 years. I don't remember exactly. And a good friend of mine that was on the board asked me to join, and then he stepped down. And since that time, I haven't stepped down. I'm still on the board, but a young man, Paul O'Dwyer, that's one of our business associates, he is now the president of the board and doing a very good job. Yeah. But I'll share a short story. We, in having an event not long ago to benefit the Child Welfare Board, there were two people that were going to donate some food, some of their time, some of their expertise and education. And one was talking to the other. They're joint venture partners, and one of them said, well, why don't we need to pay for this or pay for that? And the other fellow said, I'm not going to use any names, said, because it's for a charity. And he said, well, I understand that, and the fellow was relaying to Paul O'Dwyer that he said, I've learned several things from you and Paul, but one is that you can never give anything away, and that also the more you give, the more you will receive. And that was a great compliment to Paul and I.
Well, David, you've had such an impact. Your business impact, your success in the note business has been, I'm going to say, remarkable. But today we're starting out today talking about not business and making money, but your why, right? Your why, one of your big whys in life is you wanted to be able to be benevolent.
That's exactly right. And I've seen all through my life that some people that aren't able to help themselves, sometimes they just need a small boost. Sometimes they need a rocket ship to carry them up. But uh, we are all born equal, yet sometimes we don't have the equal opportunities that others do. And I do a lot of reading, and I remember one quote by John D. Rockefeller was that to whom much is given, much is expected. And so I've always taken that and put it in the back of my mind to remember and motivate me to do more. I read a story the other day about this lady that had a flat tire on her Mercedes on the side of the road. Several cars had passed her. Nobody had stopped to help her. An old beat up pickup pulled up behind her. A young fella got out of the pickup. She got out of her car, and he said, "Ma'am, I'll change this tire for you." And she said, I'll be glad to pay you. And he said, "No, ma'am, you don't need to do that." And so he changed the tire. She got on her way. She went on down the road. She stopped at a restaurant to have lunch. And a young lady waited on her that looked like she was between 8 and 9 months pregnant. And the lady said that she just thought that probably the lady needed some help. And also she wanted to, I got to go back. And the guy that changed her tire said, "Don't let the chain of love be broken."
Hmm.
And so the lady ended up paying her bill, left $100 bill for her meal. And the young lady saw that after she was walking out the door and called to her and said, "Wait, ma'am, I'll get you your change." And she said, "No, don't let the chain of love be broken."
Hmm.
That night, she got home and she was telling her husband the story. And it was her husband that had stopped to change her tire. But there is a song about that. But if you listen to that, it's so very true. Don't let the chain of love be broken.
You know, David, you have had an incredible influence on me, on Note School, and more importantly, on my family. My kids have known you since they were little guys. My two younger ones, Wood and Hudson, have spent, I'm gonna say, thousands of hours with you.
Lots of time.
And you have influenced them. And you've talked to them a lot about giving and being a go-giver and stuff, and saying it in a language that they could understand it, right? And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, to the adults here, right? You and I are getting a little gray hair on us. Talking about, like, how do you teach kids? How do you address benevolence with them? How do you address, like, being a go-giver in a way that a kid gets it?
Well, first of all, let me say this. I think your wife, Martha, and the mother of your two boys would disagree somewhat on what I've taught them, because it's covered a variety of subjects, some good, some bad.
Uh,
I,
she
I
loves
think
you.
that I think the best way to teach people is by your actions, and they see what you do. Uh, none of us want anything forced upon us, but I think that's the best way to do it. And start when they're young and point out to them that some people are not as fortunate as they are.
Yeah, I think that's just live by example, and that's what I've seen you do over and over. I was thinking about this interview today, David, and I was thinking about all. I mean, you and I could talk for hours about the note business and creative financing and buying and selling land and all kind of real estate stuff, and you've done it all, right? But the one thing that we don't probably get to hear enough about in business is what do we do with our success?
That's true. And you think about you can only eat so many steaks, you can only drive so many cars, you can take so many trips, but it's quite a reward and a good feeling to help somebody else to do whatever, maybe just to get by for the day or to help them change their life in some way. And it let me say this, the people in is what I call the cash flow business, whether it be notes, whatever it is, are the most giving people that I've ever been around. They're not afraid to share the strawberry patch and the snake pit, their successes and failures. And that's what we have to do. We have to give back and help as people have given to us. I've had a lot of great mentors, and you have known several of them.
Mm-hmm. You've been my mentor.
Well, you've been mine also. So we're neutral on that part.
A lot of things, David, that Note School teaches was initially a conversation that you and I had. It could have been riding around in a pickup truck looking at a piece of land, or it could have been sitting out at our retreat place called the Note Recovery Center. It's what I love to say is when you're around other knowledgeable people, other creative people, other deep thinking people, then it sparks ideas in your head that otherwise you're just not going to get on your own. And you've been a significant part of, we refer to it on Note School TV and otherwise, we refer to it as Note School's ecosystem. And I thought it would be fun to talk about that a little bit. You've got so many relationships in the Note School family. And talk a little bit about like how you figured out the next thing because of some of that.
Well, as you know, I like going to events. I like to be around like-minded people. And I'm trying to think what you touched on a moment ago about, and the common saying is to be the dumbest person in the room. And there is so much talent in that note space. And the other thing is the creativity and just the fact that there's a lot of problem solvers and there are deep thinkers. Mm-hmm. And there are also a lot of, I think, ADD and ADHD people that are in there. You can pick them out in a room, and they're the type that their mind never shuts off. It's always running. They're always thinking of another way to improve on what they're doing.
You and I have a little of that, don't we?
Just a little. You can tell by my organization here. Yes.
Oh, David, you have done some very, very creative things in real estate. You and I. So to tell the audience this, David and I own, neither one of this is our primary business, but we've loved doing this probably as much as anything either one of us have ever done. David and I own a land business together, and we buy country land, and sometimes we sell it quick and sometimes we keep it for a while, but we break it up and resell it. David is the best you've ever seen at taking a piece of land that's kind of grown over and just making it pretty. The guys that work with you and the equipment you have, David, you guys can make a park out of anything, I'm convinced. But it's been fun.
The land business is a fun business. And I think that any endeavor you have, you need to make it fun. The the thing about land tracts is raw land is not something people have to have, like a house. So you're selling something that people want. And it's so many people in the metropolitan areas want to get out in the country. They want to put their kids out on dirt and grass instead of asphalt and concrete, and to experience nature with all of the animals and everything that's there. And here again, I've lost my train of thought because of something you mentioned, but the other thing is you're helping them fulfill their dream. That's another side of it. And I'll think of what I was going to say in a moment.
You know, David, I use some of the land deals that we've done. I use pictures of them in some classes that we teach, and have a picture of the Starkey Road place and how pretty it was, and just some pictures of kind of driving down into that place and all the trees that you guys trimmed up. It was just so beautiful. And I have a little saying that we type inside the little PowerPoint slide. And I said, we want to sell land to people that land is sacred to them.
That's a very good point. And to me, all the wealth in the world is in land. It's in real estate, whether it be a house, home, apartments, mobile homes, whatever it is, but especially in the underlying dirt. And the other thing is that land will be kind to you. You never know what's under that ground or what value that something could produce that you don't even think about.
I've had a little experience with that.
Yes.
You know, David, you and I, on most every deal we've ever done, we had some creative financing, either going into the deal, going out of the deal, going in and out of the deal, right? And so creative financing has been a big part of how we've been able to do this. And a lot of people, David, you know, they sort of have a limiting belief, you know, because they feel they see a piece of land and it's $300,000, and they say, well, I don't have $300,000 in my checking account, so I can't do it. And we've sort of proven that's not needed, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was thinking about that this morning, thinking about a conversation I had with my son, Matt, yesterday about the interest rates and the effects that it has on different markets, whatever it be, whether it's real estate, automobiles, or whatever. And we were discussing about that the increase in the interest rates has probably stopped some people from buying. And I said, so how much difference is there between 5% and maybe now that it's 8%? And he said, well, a lot when it comes to monthly payment. I said, well, I agree with you on that. But I think back too to people that, just like you say, if they don't have the money, well, then they step out and get a private lender or a bank or traditional, wherever they go. Mm-hmm. And people are so hesitant now because I think they're mad that the interest rates have gone up, but they were so artificially low for 20 plus years. And I remember the days of Jimmy Carter when it was not uncommon to go to the bank and it was 18 to 20% interest. But where I'm going with that is, if a deal won't work at 8%, then 4% is too small a margin. So
that's a good point.
People have to be very careful. Don't jump over dollars to get to pennies. And that's another thing is that doing the rehab of the land is very similar to the rehab of a home, is that you're doing the improvements because you want to bring out more value, and also because most people don't have the imagination to know what that kitchen would look like with new cabinets, or placing shrubbery, or the same way with the land of trimming the trees, or doing some dirt excavation so that by building ponds, waterways, different things.
You've done some beautiful work on land that we've done, David. I so wish that, we could load them, all the audience up in the on a tour bus and go show them some of the crazy, beautiful stuff you've done. But it drastically has changed how the land looks, and it changed the value of the land because you made it where people could see it. They could see the beauty in it. David, as you know, Note School is pretty good at teaching creative financing, how to get the seller to carry terms, and a lot of different ways. And I use in classes, I use examples that you and I've done. So a lot of people may feel like they know you because they've seen us talk about the land business. They just didn't know you, right? And let me just tell you, he's a guy that makes it happen, right? Every once in a while, I come up with a creative idea, but the truth of the matter is, you implement it. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about talking to a property seller, particularly when you're going to get them to carry some financing for you, right? And I wanted to just talk a little bit about how you build rapport with them and how you build comfort with them so that, because you're going to owe them money in the future. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, you've been so successful at this. I think you must have a secret formula.
Well, I guess it could be, but the first thing is creating a rapport with those people. And if you're really interested in what they have to sell, is just to drill down, visit with them, just ask questions. How'd you acquire this land? Did you inherit it? Was your grandfather's? Did you buy it? Where did that come from? And to just to visit and get acquainted with them so that you're comfortable with each other. As my dad's older brother, Uncle Tony, used to say, you got to get up and you got to smell of each other, kind of like dogs do. And you see if you want to do business together. It's do I like them? Do they like me? Do we want to do business together? And just gradually ease into it. And one question is, well, if you got the cash money out of this, what would you do with that money? Where would you put it in not a safe place, but a secure place where it doesn't disappear? It's not paper chasing paper. It's a real asset that you can touch, you can feel it, and you can see it. And it just takes a lot of touches sometimes so that people get comfortable. The same way when I first started dealing with private lenders. That was another thing, is you got to get comfortable, and you're going to get asked a lot of questions about a lot of different things. And then after you do a few deals with them, then it's like they don't want any of those other details. They just want to know what their yield is and when they're going to get their payment. When am I going to get paid?
And do you think it's a deal?
Exactly.
Because they trust your judgment.
That's another good point. And it's with the seller financing, I've had some pushback from some people of they're not accustomed to buying the seller providing the financing. And I think that they have fear that there's some unknown, hidden way that you can take advantage of them. And as I explained to them, we use the same documentation that the banks and traditional lenders use. The only thing is you just send the payment to us instead of somewhere else. And then most of them understand, because you can ask, well, have you ever gotten a mortgage on a house? Yes. And who did you get that mortgage with? Well, I got it with B of A or Chase or Bank of America. Well, I just mentioned that, B of A. And usually they'll mention that they got that loan processed, and before they made the first payment, they were instructed to send the payment somewhere else. They'd sold the loan, and it was out of the originator's hands. So just try to make people comfortable as much as you can, and explain to them that they can get a better yield. And what better collateral could they have than the land they just sold. It's not just paper, it's paper backed by a hard asset.
David, you have dropped several pearls of wisdom here today. I hope the audience sees that. You've said some really important statements and facts. And I want to point out to you guys as you're watching this show, David is talking to me. He's not talking at me. He is a very sophisticated business guy. He is very savvy, just excessive wisdom. But as you can tell when he's talking, he's doing it in such a manner that anybody, whether you're Eddie Speed that knows David Fenoglio as well as I know him, or you're just somebody that he's just met, he makes people feel comfortable. And David, that demonstration that you did today that I did not mention to you at all before we started because I knew what you would do. You just have a good way of talking to people.
Well, I want you to know that I was scared because I didn't know what you were going to do to me. Put me on the spot, so
there wasn't no pre-interview, was there, David?
No, there wasn't. And that's another thing too, is I enjoy people, and as you know, I make conversation with anybody I see because people are very interesting, and there's always things to be learned from them. And I know through the years here in my small hometown, when I'd be talking to somebody and saying I was going to an event, and usually the question would be, haven't you learned enough yet? And I said, we never learn it all. And there's always a nugget. If you learn nothing from a speaker that does a presentation, you'll pal up with somebody or visit with somebody that you'll always get that nugget. And there's a small book called Steal Like an Artist. It looks like it's written by a third grader. And what it talks about is artists just steal ideas from other artists. And that's what we do in business. We steal ideas.
That's great. David Fenoglio, you have impacted a lot of people in many different ways. And we started out today talking about benevolence, and we ended up talking to customers, people that we're trying to do business with, either buy or sell something. And all of these things really tie together because, I think that your business ethics and your style of doing business and your heart for benevolence, I think that's just all. It has become who you are. You have developed yourself into that mindset.
Well, and here again, I've had a lot of good mentors. And as you know, I was in the farm and ranch business with livestock, and being associated with those livestock dealers, they had a lot of one line wisdoms. And one time when the cattle market had really gone up, and I was talking to this old fella, and each one of these livestock mentors had been broke at least once in their life, if not multiple times. And so I was asking him I said, well, where do you think this market's going to go? And he said, at some point it'll settle back down. He said, trees don't grow to the sky. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't take his advice. I sold several hundred cows I had, and if I'd have just stayed out of the market for a year, but I couldn't stand to do that. So, it's climbing up that mountain, you get nearly the top, and then you get hit with that 2x4 and you scrape your fingernails all the way down. So I was crying about everything that had gone on because the price of those cows went from $600 to $100 in a year. And I was telling this old fellow about that, and he said, you should have been selling when you was yelling, and you could be buying when you're crying. And how true that is, that everything is a market condition. And, who could have predicted the COVID issue? I mean, just so many things. And I can't think of the others they shared, but those old fellas taught me a lot that I've never forgotten.
David Fenoglio, you have been a joy to have this conversation with today. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Everybody have a good day.
Well, today you got to hear from someone that you can tell that I think a lot of. And I think now after this conversation, you can tell why. We learn from people that we're around. And if we're paying attention, we get taught a lot of good lessons from the right people. David Fenoglio has taught me a lot of great lessons in life. He's taught my family. He's influenced a lot of people in our Note School family. And that's why I wanted to start out today and talk about his benevolence first, because that is a lesson worth learning. And the things that we have learned in that area have impacted us and hopefully have impacted our kids and further generations. So, David talked a lot about creative financing. Note School has some really cool master classes in that area. You can look in the show notes, and we'd love to see you come hang out with us at a master class. Register for that, just a couple of hours, and I think it'll be fairly enlightening. And you guys have a great day, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.